Okay, I think we can get started and maybe there'll even be more people, but um, welcome to Virtual Union Hall is a weekly discussion group. Our focus is supporting and building the American Union to pass the blueprint for a better America. Your attendance is appreciated. Thanks for choosing to be part of this moral movement to put an end to poverty, injustice, and militarism, and redirect the establishment narrative and set the United States back on the road to generosity and compassion. I am TC, your host and facilitator. Brian is the qualified witness. This is the Wednesday American Union Home on Zoom, a place to meet and get to know other union members and ask questions and get information. We encourage respectful, open-minded, nonviolent communication. Thanks for attending. Let's begin. And I think we just had another someone come in and yes. Oh, it's
Hello.
Jesse.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Okay, Jesse, you're just in time. We're getting started. Round one, introductions, and your name, your place on the planet, and what issue you are most passionate about. So we're going to start with where Nissan.
Hey, so my name is Nissan Pitcher. I am from New York, Upper West Side, representing. I am currently serving as the administrative coordinator for the United People's Assembly and also a tech coordinator for the New York People's Assembly. And my passion is trying to solve the ills of this country and bring logic back into insanity back into the world.
Brian.
My name's Brian. I'm based in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and I'm passionate about ending poverty, ending mass incarceration, and ending the endless wars.
Thank you. And I think Chiwa. Hi, Chiwa.
I'm Chiwa. I'm from Oceanside, California, and I am passionate about helping families move through the climate crisis whole and happy and reducing the climate crisis as much as possible.
I'm TC. I'm a retired carpenter in Oceanside, California. And my passion is moving us to a system that works for the good of all. Alberto.
Hi, I'm Alberto Orlano. I'm a public relations specialist based here in Los Angeles, California. And what I look forward to in passion is ending the division.
And Jesse.
Hi, I'm Jesse Donnelly, and I live in Valencia, California. And my biggest passion is helping move forward what we're talking about in all aspects of it. And I think it's a great way to attack the system with our thoughts and wishes.
All right, thanks everyone. And round two I was put down to discuss what one receives as a member of the union because I put a lot of energy into that this week. But
Oh, really? That sounds interesting.
yeah, I have a whole list. I'm not.
Okay. I have.
Here's what you get. As a member, you get. You add your voice and personal sovereignty to a moral movement to change the way we govern ourselves. You get a newsletter about union actions underway and coming up. A sense of personal value and purpose by being part of the solution. Freedom from the dilemma of voting for the lesser of two evils. Instructions on how to be an American Union organizer. To start a local chapter and earn rewards for adding value to the American Union, to experience the power of an intentional group, connect with individuals that are solution-oriented and looking forward, to create a sense of belonging, security, and well-being in the national movement of values, the focus, optimism, relationships, integrity, personal power, being nonpartisan and diversity, to change not just how we do politics, but to change the way we relate to ourselves and each other. And you will get to be encouraged to be authentic. That's being true to one's personality, spirit, and character. Your integrity, your words and actions match. Accountability, taking responsibility for your own actions. Responsibility, the opportunity and ability to act independently, to make decisions without authorization. Open-minded, a willingness to try new things and to hear and consider new ideas. Weekly Zoom gatherings, Wednesdays and Fridays. Educate yourself on videos and presentation. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. A movement born of great transition that guides us to come together in a purpose greater than ourselves, to be part of growing the American Union, to a citizens assembly where we crowdsource legislation and have popular digital vote and pressure. Oh, it keeps going. Well, I think that's enough. Does anybody have any comments? Welcome, Eddie.
Hey, TC.
Well, I just read off a bunch of things that I think you get for being in the union, and so we didn't get any response. So I think it was because it's all interpersonal and from my point of view, and something better to talk about. New members, give a brief story about who you are. What is the gift you bring to the union? And I only think that's Alberto. And you want to say a little bit more about yourself, Alberto?
So since I represent the American Union, I actually had worked in a couple of political campaigns in the past, but on a state and local level. And so, like with the partisanship that has happened, that's happening in Washington, I've gotten to a point where the partisanship has gotten out of control, and we're not having thorough and logical discussions. And what matters to me at the end of the day is just having having rationality.
Okay, thank you, Alberto. Define the idea of electing representatives to support the blueprint, and we'll disrupt Congress till we get what we want. Now, this is interesting because Brian taught me something. I thought that we could elect candidates that wouldn't let anything pass unless we got what we wanted, and to find out that no, people aren't ready to do that. The people in the parties are not going to buck their party right now. And we see the evidence of that in the squad. I mean, we sent these people there to do our bidding, and wasn't long until they were in the fold. And so back to our best hope is to get them to pass this before the election.
What? I did not understand that. You just say.
Geez, I wish I remembered.
Okay, never mind.
AOC in the fold, get them back in the fold.
Oh, yeah. I was talking about, I had got off on a tangent thinking that we were going to elect candidates that would disrupt the system by standing against their party. And it's like, that's not going to happen because they're not ready. And then I said that the squad, AOC, and the people that we thought were going to be disruptors for us, it wasn't long before they were turned, and now they're just like the rest of them. And
Okay. Yeah.
we don't
Well,
have a champion.
I would like to say something to that as being a former Justice Democrat.
Yes.
Yeah, because that was very disappointing that happened, but it wasn't unexpected. As well, when we sent them in there, the first thing that happened was the leadership was targeted by the Justice Democrats and was split. It was successfully taken down. That wasn't too shocking. That was expected that attack would happen and most likely will be successful, seeing how they've been successful with many other organizations. So when we heard back from the people inside, not just AOC, but also the staffing members that they took along with them, because they do take staffing members with them. The information we got back from the staff members were disturbing. So we found like there's no real accountability mechanism inside the system at all. And there's basically wall-to-wall ends of lawyers and lobbyists that from end to end shuffle you into small groups from the beginning and then continue to talk inside your ear and isolate you. So that was very hard to hear. And it wasn't unexpected that we basically threw candidates in there in technically the lion's den with like a stick and said, go. So basically eventually it got broken down. So I mean, it was stated a couple of times, you have to force them to do it. And I think that was the line where we failed.
Yeah.
Because the messaging changed where eventually was like, okay, we got to hold these people's feet to the fire. It changed, and people, even the biggest ones of us, like Noam Chomsky and all the other ones, said, changed their tune and said, no, what are you gonna do? You can't win this way. And this was very hard. This was again very disturbing to see. This again came out with the fight with Force to Vote, and as a accountability measure. So so again, the biggest problem we have is losing the narrative. We're very bad. We're very bad at taking over the narrative, and we got to work on doing.
Good, Nissan. Brian has his hand up. What are you going to add, Brian?
Yeah, I think Nissan ended on a strong note there of seizing the narrative. And that's part of the packaging and the messaging of the American Union is to set that, to build consensus around specific things before the election. It's when we throw AOC and other people into Congress. I mean, Washington, D.C. is a swamp. And so doesn't matter how great of a champion we fling into the swamp, they're going to sink into it. And so the goal is to change the strategy of building consensus outside the swamp so that we've got control of the narrative and that there's a very specific expectation of what they get done. That's why I write it down ahead of time instead of waiting and hoping that they will figure it out. So yeah, but Nissan's correct. It's very hard for them to keep focus in there because there's so much pressure to fundraise and support the party that we have to strengthen and we have to inspire them to be better. And so by building consensus around the country so that different members from different districts, all know that people are asking for the same thing all around the country. Hopefully we can cut through the gridlock in Washington that way.
So you're talking about consensus around the blueprint, around dealing with the three poverty, incarceration, and militarism, and getting just millions of people rallying around that to the point to where it's hard to ignore. And
that it seizes control of the narrative.
Yeah,
There's a very clear expectation that we want to know where everyone stands on this. And we see it sometimes happen with various controversial issues, like, banning Dr. Seuss books or something like that, where all of a sudden, all the congressmen want to weigh in on where they stand on this very important issue. And so there are other things that we could talk about, like ending poverty, ending mass incarceration, ending the endless wars. And so, making that a focal point and forcing congressmen to come down on one side or the other of that, instead of letting them just issue nebulous statements and not make any promises.
So I think this week you did a Twitter thread about a schedule of some form, or am I mistaken on that, Brian?
So yeah, if you're on the newsletter, get the American Union newsletter this week. There's a link to a new article, eight rules for a nonviolent revolution. And we did a Twitter thread with like some 50 different tweets or something, laying out a step-by-step plan of attack from August 1st, for the 100 days from August 1st to the election, of how exactly to go through everything. And so October 15th being the decision day for candidates for Congress. And there's some talk that maybe that's a day to build connections with people trying to organize like a general strike of sorts, and use that one day to bring people together around one specific set of issues and demanding specific change in the 3 weeks before the election, where we give them the tools and expect them to act.
So this is exciting. We talked about one time creating something about the 100 days or something, and we got hung up in 99 or 100. Typical. Anyway, so anyone else want to chime in here?
Well, as usual, I would agree with everything Brian says. And, I think he's always on the right track. And so, I just support that, 100% and what we're trying to do. And, as far as AOC and these other people with that pressure that was put on, it's understandable. And at the same time, how do we, how we need to make sure that we can get people that are going to do the right thing. Give them the ammunition to fight back or to fight harder for what our agendas are.
Now I have a question for everybody. If we did have a large consensus around this piece of legislation, would that give people like AOC and the squad the courage to maybe stand up a little bit more than they are now?
Yeah, perhaps.
I sure believe so.
Hopefully, yes. I mean, I believe their hearts are in the right place, and there is that huge pressure. And you're talking about these people that have so much money. I mean, that it's ridiculous, and there's no way of really knowing how much money it is. They, used to be in the old days, somebody who was like connected to the mafia would go in and give a magazine to the senator in his office and say, "Hey, here's our local union thing," and there'd be like a rotten $300 or $600 in the magazine for the month. And this was just like how it was. It's our government is a lot like the mafia. I mean, they even used the mafia to try and kill Castro, most likely Kennedy. I mean, it's all these factions within our government need to be sanitized in one way or another. I mean, the CIA, all those different things. And what we saw with Trump is he had some of the most despicable people in his cabinet, and they turned back everything on the EPA. He put the worst possible person in charge of that. And now we're seeing the Supreme Court doesn't want to fight climate change. It doesn't want to come out on it. And at the same time, we have the military, which I don't trust, saying, yeah, the same thing Bernie used to say is our climate change is our biggest national security threat. now the actual generals in the army are starting to say that because they're losing equipment supposedly in different areas, that's due to climate change. So oddly enough, even though if the evil empire is feeling it, maybe that's one thing in there that is maybe some of those people are coming around. I can't say all generals are bad or all anybody's bad, but well,
Right on, Jesse. I want to get some more people, Alberto or Eddie. Alberto, you want to say something? Where you're at with this?
So my thoughts of what of today's political climate change, or no, the political spectrum is the problem that I'm seeing today is actually the activism. Now, the Supreme Court, which is 6-3 six conservative judges versus 3 liberal judges, they're not separating they're not separating the law from their beliefs. Now, in the recent court case of Roe versus Wade, they're actually they've actually had taken away rights, the rights of women. Now, that case should never have been considered, regardless whether you're in the left, right, or in the middle. What that actually, because of the overturn of Roe v. Wade, that gives the Democrats more firepower as far as as far as the midterms go. We are going to see this as a hot topic in both the midterms and 2024, and just like in the in the blueprint, no presentations or banning abortion for 10 years, which that clearly goes against what the American Union is seeking, because now that the Supreme Court had just overturned that rule, this is something that can be in the favor of actually for the American Union to point out, this is about protecting women's rights. Now that that promise of protecting women is broken.
Okay. Eddie, you want to jump in here a little bit?
To me, where I tend to go with these things is, I want to understand how it works. What are the causal dynamics? And one of the places I'm at is, a couple months back, I was reading about one of the questions for me is how has it worked in the past, because there are many things about human nature that have not changed maybe in 2,000 years. And we've had democracies and rises and movement, upward and downward movements of democracies for all of that time. A few months ago I was looking at the 16 conflict around the 1600s, the Glorious Revolution. And one of the things that stuck out to me was that, at that time, sort of the politics of the time was religion. And so the big thing was, are you Catholic or are you Protestant? And it's funny, it seems funny to think about, because nowadays that's no longer an issue. That is, nobody really sort of cares what you are. But they're, to me, I'm interested in that. I would like to figure out how the dynamics work and what that tells us about what we should or could do. But I don't have an answer on that yet. That's just the question that I'm wrestling with sometimes when I have time.
I enjoy your inquisitiveness. So Nissan, we're back around to the beginning. You want to come back in here?
Sure. What is the topic here?
Well, we were just talking about different ideas, just getting people to give their opinions on what's going on. Alberto talked about the Supreme Court, and Eddie talked about how he likes to know the nuts and bolts of everything. And so where are you right now?
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, we live in a very important time. There's a lot of shifts happening as we see the collapse of this empire slowly crumbling down, as faith in our institutions are evaporating. It'd be strong enough to try to prepare for what's to come, because normally this ends up in a power vacuum. We don't know what happens in power vacuums. Already the right is terrifying that the right has armed militias already with a plan ready to take action and are actively looking to sabotage our democracy. And I want to help get people to start informing them of this and try to have things up. And already our revolution is taking a stance on trying to save parts of our democracy. They have so-so effect so far. They've had a couple of victories and a couple of defeats. So I do think we needed to, really come together and give some hope and place, get some stable, place for people to come to before we go for authoritarian, because that's where things are going right now. And I would like to prevent that at all costs.
All right. Now Chihuahua has her hand up.
Yeah, because you don't call on me.
You were next,
Oh, I was next. Oh, okay.
or Brian, or you, but
I'll wait, let Chihuahua go first.
No. I don't want to go first. I was only kidding. It's okay. Yeah, well, I, like everybody else, I'm not happy with this decision about Roe versus Wade. And I, on the other hand, I am unhappy to see it occupying so much of the center of attention, because just like COVID, it eclipses the most important issues of our day, which have to do with the causes of climate change and what we're going to do about them. And so, President Biden a few days ago did this thing with the oil leases in Alaska and the Gulf of Mexico, where he said that he could open up, I think it was 11 new leases in those areas, and he's waiting to hear from the public about that, what we think about it. Nobody's talking about that.
wow. Where do you talk about that? Where do you show up for that?
Yeah. Well, it's what I read on the internet and on news channels on the internet, that we have a couple of months now for public commentary on those issues,
Oh, cool.
on that issue. But nobody's talking about it because we're talking about Roe versus Wade and blah, all these other things that are important, but they are not existential crises.
Right.
Well, that's where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you, Chihuahua. And I almost had something to say, but I slipped my mind. Brian.
All right. Yeah, I'll build on those two things. So yeah, the Supreme Court, a lot of these decisions are frustrating. But judges, it's their responsibility to judge, and there's a lot of gray areas in the law, and they clearly didn't have to go this way. On this issue, on the Clean Air Act and the EPA, there's all these different issues that you could come down on either. You can make an argument for either side. But there's one thing that there isn't gray. There's one thing that is very clear, and that it's Congress. Congress has failed to act. There's no reason that Congress can't address carbon specifically so that the executive branch doesn't have to say, well, the Clean Air Act covers it and that's how we're going to do it. There's no reason that Congress couldn't have codified a woman's right to an abortion. There is no reason that Congress couldn't have done other things like the DACA program that, you know, President Obama did through executive order. Donald Trump tried to repeal, and they're fighting over it in court about the deferred action for child immigrants when Congress could fix this at any time. That's the fundamental problem, is Congress is not acting. Congress is hoping that if they do nothing, that maybe the executive will step in or the courts will step in and then they won't have to act. So we need a better way to hold Congress accountable and a better way to force them to act. And so once again, the American Union method is say exactly what we expect them to do. The exact solutions that we want and crowdsource those and then hold them accountable. Use that as a metric for casting our votes together in the election. And so force Congress to act so that the courts don't have to step in and we can really solve these things. The other part is that what Nissan was saying about how collapse is, you know, is a possibility, and he's absolutely correct. But I think of this as kind of the way that maybe you know someone who maybe has a drinking problem, and you think, well, maybe that when they hit bottom, that then they'll turn their lives around. And it's okay that people are thinking, well, all right, when we collapse, when we hit bottom, then we can plan what to do next. But we don't have to get that bad. We can turn our lives around. We can turn this country around before. We don't have to hit bottom. We can just decide that we want to be better, that we want to work together and fix these problems, and we have the ability to do it. So I appreciate everybody who's here tonight and shares that positive vision for America, because it's totally possible.
And I would join you in that and say that we really can't wait until we hit bottom. If we wait until we hit bottom, it's too late.
So I'm going to say a low bottom. I mean, a high bottom. You know, I had a high bottom. I mean, all I had to do was just run out of money, and I stopped before I ran out of everything else. And anyway, so it's back to getting a large union of people acting together to, if nothing else, encourage Congress to move in the direction that we put forth, or it's clear that this is citizens legislation that we want done, and we're not going away. Well, we're going to get it done before but I just want to say that I learned my place today this week, and Brian is a genius, and I'm just kind of like following along and trying to help out the best I can. And I'm having a great time, and I'm learning a lot. And I appreciate everybody. So it's on to you, Jesse. Let's hear what you got to add now.
Well, there is an extreme right-wing push in our country. It's not just our country. I think Poland just recently had an election where now they have a right-wing president. And it's not just here, we're seeing this all around the world. And nobody that lives in countries like that is happy about it. You know, the Republicans really are a minority compared to Democrats. And then you go back to the two-party paradigm that's created to, you know, be glad to take each other's spot every couple of years and so forth. But the Supreme Court is so ridiculously, it's like, do we really need a Supreme Court? If it's supposed to be there to have checks and balances between the three sections of our government, it's not working. It's not working at all, because there is no check. It's only our way or the highway kind of thing. And it's, you know, like this kid who just shot up outside of Chicago in Highland Park. That guy was obviously nuts, but what was the new gun lobby bill, or the new bill that came out against guns, was very minimal. You know, it didn't say 18-year-olds couldn't buy guns. It just said they had to have better checks. Well, that guy was a nutter. He's already posted things about wanting to kill people and sings about them in songs. And then oddly enough, he escaped by dressing like a woman. That's how crazy our world is. But they're also taking people like that and making heroes out of them now, instead of, like the one kid who went up from Illinois to Michigan or Wisconsin and killed those people. He's now a poster boy for these types of things. They have groupies now. Who knew? I mean, it's just very sad, but not that that's something I should be talking about, but I had to say.
All right, thanks, Jesse. Alberto, you want to get back in here for a minute? We have time.
So everything that I've been hearing from, whether it's the whether it's the right, and how much just like what Nissan was pointing out in the potential crumble of our nation. We have to think about the real influence that could be the possible crumble. The real problem of the possible crumble is Donald Trump. He stacked up the courts to a 6-3 majority. 50 years ago, we would not have seen a hard right conservative being elected, being nominated in the Supreme Court. We wouldn't today. We don't see an Anthony Kennedy or another. Forgot what his name was. He was also a swing. He was also a swing judge. We're not seeing swing judges. Donald Trump is actually creating a polarization in the Republican Party to turn against one American on another. What people don't understand is that it's all about the Republican Party kissing up to Donald Trump. It's sad because everybody wants to see him, back bidding for the 2024 election, which is a huge concern. But because my concern is that the end of democracy would potentially be with the election of Trump.
Eddie.
I feel like one of the new dynamics in the world is, we've become more interconnected, and I do think that international politics, what's going on in different countries, those are interacting with each other maybe more than in the past. Is this any? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. You're back.
Yeah, I was just thinking about how the world has gotten smaller. International politics, what's going on in other countries is maybe becoming more interactive than in the past. I read a book a year ago about the Cambridge Analytica thing, and that was quite interesting. And apparently there was this sort of they did this thing where they were they were using modern techniques, AI or statistical techniques, and looking at how they can use that to influence a country. They looked at small island countries, and apparently they also they did some work in the US. So I don't know. I'm just thinking about those things.
All right, thank you, Eddie. Does
I'd
that
like to add something to that.
Jesse? Yeah.
Steve Bannon was one of the main components at Cambridge Analytica.
Yep.
So
When?
Steve Bannon.
Main components of what?
Of Cambridge Analytica, which was based in London, which was spreading a lot of false information. And this was very intentional. And, you know, I happen to know where Steve Bannon travels because somebody I know very close to me sets up his travel. And what he is he's a bag man that goes over and pays people off and helps push these right-wing agendas over in Europe. And then when he brought up Cambridge Analytica, I haven't thought about that in a while. But there's the key right there is it's people like Steve Bannon who are running around behind the scenes of who are just the most horrible people in the world. But that's what I have to say on the Cambridge Analytica.
Thanks, Jesse. And so I think we're back around to Nissan. We have 10 minutes. We can go around one more time. Nissan. Going once, going twice. Bummer, because I can't remember who goes after Nissan. Was it Brian or Chihuahua?
Brian.
Brian.
You sure it wasn't Chihuahua?
I don't have anything to say right now,
Yeah, I'm not sure I have anything else to add at the moment.
Okay.
except that I could say to you that I saw your email that you asked for my help, but I saw it too late for me to do anything. So I apologize.
It's all right. Yeah, there's a link to the finalized post in today's newsletter. And if you see any typos or anything in there, I can go back and edit it. At the
Okay.
post, so.
I do have one other thing, which I really do think that crowdsourcing is sort of the the wave to get on right now. You know, it's one of the hopes is that I think there are, it's controversial. There's different thoughts about Ukraine and Russia, but from my perspective, it's very surprising and interesting that Ukraine is sort of holding off Russia at war right now. I compare it to, it's as if Hitler and Stalin got together to take down Poland, and instead of taking them down in 3 weeks, Poland fought them off. And part of that, it seems to me, is that the power of the individual has increased, and the use of drones, the use of crowdfunding, the use of they're using online phone apps to share information. This is where the tanks are. This is where things can be targeted, as well as that right now there's resistance in Russia, and things are sort of going up, catching fire in Russia. I think that points to the power of the individual, and that on balance, that's a good thing, and I think that is a source of hope, and maybe something that should be utilized. Is the power of the individual with modern ability to organize in large numbers in a different way than it has been possible in the past.
Thank you, Eddie. A minute ago, I had this great speech about getting people inspired and to join the union and how we can work together to get that to happen and what it is that we can do. We have videos to share with people. We have presentations to share with people. We have a newsletter now. I think the newsletter turned out really good, is what I think. Anyway, so is anybody else got ideas about getting more people excited and joined up?
I have one. Every day I get quite a few texts wanting me to sign a petition or give support to something, but they always come with the dollar amount. And
Yeah.
there's some that I do, but they're actually, and this is coming from the Democratic Party, where it's like, I can't believe you didn't do this after you don't do it or something. You know what I mean? And it's like high
You
pressure.
promised.
Yeah, I thought you were with us. What's wrong? What do you do? I mean, so anyways, just thinking of occasionally you might get one or an email that doesn't ask for you to give any money. It just wants your support by signing a petition. And if we were able to, with the technology that some genius, maybe one of you guys knows, not me, would be able to start building up a phone log and how they do the same thing to us, but actually do it in a way that you don't have to ask for money. You want their opinions. You want them to support your agenda. And so maybe that's a possibility. I'm sure they spend a lot of money on this AI stuff that sends this stuff. But at the same time, I do donate to people that I believe in, especially like my local politicians, our governor here. And of course, I donated a lot to Bernie, and I did donate to AOC. And but that was right at the elections. What we're not talking about, we're talking about trying to get more people involved to gather
Yeah,
up.
to donate $5 to the American Union.
Yeah, and yeah,
That
exactly.
proves you're not a bot.
Yeah, but while at the same time, you don't have, it's like, hey, you can sign up for this, but you don't need them to pay anything unless they go, wow, hey, this is pretty good. I like the last 2 things you sent me, the last 3 things. Yeah, I'll donate, but it could be worded in a nice way that if you want to contribute, you can contribute. Because
Okay, Brian's
people
got his hand up. Let's hear it. I'm
oh,
sure.
Brian, I love you.
Oh, I was just going to say, I agree with Jesse, and we are doing that in North Carolina, where we're texting registered voters in our target demographics and affiliations, asking about universal basic income as our opening. So, do you support a universal basic income on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the best? And so we've got hundreds and hundreds of people who have responded favorably that we're now building a bank of contacts. People are predisposed to that. And then from there, we respond and we invite them to events like we had. I lost track. Was it last night? TC was another universal
Yeah,
basic in
yeah,
North Carolina.
yeah.
So yeah, to try and draw them in and yeah, but as you're saying, all these things do take money. So I'll post in the chat and pass the virtual hat if anyone's able to contribute to the PAC. Cost about $25 to send out about 1,000 texts, and any contributions are appreciated. But yes, we're trying to, it's hard to get people's attention, and texting isn't necessarily the best way, but it's a way that you in the space of a couple hours can reach out to 1,000 people, and even if we get a response rate of probably around 10%. So.
Well, I can donate to you as well as I did Bernie and our governor. And I mean, how cool is it that he's like fighting Florida right now? That is just excellent. And he comes from a very wealthy family. He's very connected, but so are the Kennedys. And they do have a good side. And again, they can't always do everything they want, or hey, they might kill you. Hello.
Jesse, did we send you the donation link?
Well, you probably did, and I probably said, screw that. No, no, I just got the email earlier today, and then
Yeah.
I'd already looked at it. I was going to call you, and so I'm Mr. Lazy over here in certain ways, and I'm also too busy in other ways.
Yeah.
I'm trying. Yeah.
So just briefly to build on what you were saying, Jesse, about how they're always raising money and spending money on these things, is that when they do, they're trying to keep the margins as close as possible to flip these seats. And that just gives even more power to the committed swing voters in the middle who are willing to go in either direction. So, here in North Carolina, we got a US Senate seat that's up for grabs, and they spent about $200 million in the last election trying to win this one. and neither candidate got over 50% of the vote. It's
Yeah.
just a small percentage that's going to be able to control the outcome. So that's where we can get the most bang for our buck, rather than trying to, fund candidates and
Mhm.
so just be the deciders.
Yeah. I mean, we have such a corrupt sheriff in Los Angeles County that there are gangs that are operating since 1970, and he didn't win his runoff. I mean, it's going to go all the way, and he spent a lot of money. He won't even show up now at places because they're all like attacking him. Anyways,
Thank you, Jesse. We're at time, but Brian, you brought up that Senate race and it made me want to ask a question before we go. It's a non incumbent race, and I'm sure you thought about it. We probably even talked about it, but I think I've proven tonight that I can't remember what I talked about. So, where's the union with them right now?
As in a race where there isn't a challenger and an incumbent? Is that what you're asking?
So what you're thinking about that race right now? There's two people in it.
There's actually three people. There's a libertarian who's on the ballot as well.
Oh.
There was a Green Party candidate that petitioned and got enough signatures, and the ballot law commission, or whatever it's called here, voted on party lines 3-2 to disqualify him from the ballot. So Matthew Hull on the ballot.
So is it time to send them letters or anything to?
Yes, and this would be one of these things where if somebody wanted to start a petition, that would go to both of them and say, look, I don't care which one of you wins, but this is what I want done. Yeah, so if anybody's interested in organizing those kind of petitioning efforts, we've got the Action Network that can do all those things. And then as people sign them, then, we add them to the email list and give them more information going forward.
Okay. Anything else before we close? I just want to thank everybody who was here tonight. That we're growing. We had more tonight than last week, and hopefully next week we'll have even more. And I'd like to get a couple like I saw last night. They were very interesting people. So with that, I suppose I will